Folks who went before us blazed the trail through history. The heritage they left behind is part of you and me. All the dreams they still live on, and it makes me proud to be a living, breathing part of it all, the American legacy.
Sir, here's a map and some information about our park. There's your change, and this is your receipt. You'll want to hang on to that. It's good for 2 weeks here in Yellowstone National Park, and also allows you to enter the Grand Teton Park south of here.
That's great, thanks.
We'll come see all the bears.
Well, you probably won't see any bears along our roads. Most of them have been relocated deep in our backcountry. That's for their own preservation and also for the safety of park visitors. But you will see a lot of other animals: deer, elk, moose, maybe some bison. And we ask that you don't get too close to the animals and that you don't feed them, please. Have a good time in the park and enjoy your stay.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Yellowstone Park was named for the yellow rock that you see in the canyon walls, and the Yellowstone River, of course, created the canyon.
Who started the park?
The United States government established Yellowstone back in 1872. The purpose, of course, was to set aside a wilderness area. Today, we hope you still enjoy the wonders that you're going to find here, but we also ask that you help to protect it and preserve it so that others may enjoy it in the future.
It's called a hydrothermal spring. Here in Yellowstone, these pools are something special. They're warm. In fact, they're downright hot. There are thousands of these hot springs found throughout the park, many of them in beautiful settings like this.
The springs are really surface water from rain or snow that slowly seeps down deep in the Earth's crust, where it becomes heated from hot volcanic rock and then is forced back upward into these crystal clear pools. There are also special kinds of springs where the water under the Earth's crust becomes superheated by the hot molten rock and suddenly explodes, throwing water and steam into the air. This is called a geyser. It's just what its name says it is, Old Faithful, the most famous geyser in the world. It's been erupting like this at varying intervals averaging 60 to 90 minutes apart, day and night, month after month, year after year. Park rangers tell us that it has never missed once in the more than 100 years they've been keeping records here. For many, it's the main attraction of the park.
This summer, more than 2 million people from every state in our nation, as well as from many foreign countries, will visit the park here in Wyoming and marvel at Old Faithful. The park rangers hope, of course, that these people won't forget what else the park has to offer. Nature has truly been at work here in Yellowstone. Long ago, such attractions caught the imagination of another person who visited here, a very important man in our history. His name, Theodore Roosevelt. He was President of the United States from 1901 to 1909.
He did a great deal in making sure that this and other national park areas remain forever as nature had created them. He also saw to it that new areas of forest and beautiful parkland be set aside permanently for the benefit and enjoyment of all the people in this country.
President Roosevelt visited here in Yellowstone in 1903. He brought with him as his traveling companion one of his country's great naturalists, John Burroughs. In fact, their camp was not far from here, just north along the canyon of the Yellowstone River.
John! John! I have just seen the most remarkable sight. An entire herd of elk just passed beneath that ridge over there. They passed within 50 yards of where I sat hidden.
Mr. President, don't you think we ought to be headed back towards camp? We've been out several hours, and I know your security people are going to begin to worry about you.
John, quit fretting. I'm far safer out here in Wyoming than I am in Washington, D.C. And it's not often that a president of the United States can take the time to see nature in such a setting. And besides, we haven't run down that pygmy owl we heard last night. What are you laughing at?
You, Mr. President. If only those people who criticized you recently could see you as I see you. Many of them thinking you came west to Yellowstone to hunt and kill wild game. Here you are, much more concerned with seeing and observing the habitat of a wild pygmy owl than firing a rifle.
Bully, John, bully. I think you're beginning to understand me. There is a time and a place for hunting, but it is not here. This park and its wilderness area are special. And yet I am convinced that the people of the United States do not understand the rich heritage that is theirs. We must see to it that these and other wilderness areas are preserved for our children and their children's children forever. There I go making a speech again. Come on now. We've got time for a little more observation, and then we'll head back.
If you insist. Let's try this trail. It heads down toward the river where we heard the owl last evening.
2 weeks later, President Roosevelt's western journey took him to this northern part of Arizona.
The Grand Canyon of Arizona has a natural wonder which, so far as I know, is absolutely unparalleled throughout the rest of the world. I hope it will soon become a national park, with nothing to mar the wonderful grandeur, the great loneliness and beauty of the canyon. You cannot improve it. The ages have been at work on it, and man can only mar it.
In 1919, Theodore Roosevelt's wish was granted. The Grand Canyon became a national park. Today, it remains as one of the 40 national parks which have been created by our federal government. The parks are located in every region of our country, all of them administered by the National Park Service, and all of them are open to every one of us for our benefit and enjoyment.
But to truly enjoy the park, you can't stay up on the rim. You have to go down to the canyon itself, down some 5,000 feet to the Colorado River that carved out the Grand Canyon over millions of years.
Each day, hundreds of visitors begin walking or riding on the backs of these sure-footed National Park mules and slowly descend on one of two narrow trails downward to the level of the river. The trip provides the necessary time to marvel at what nature has created over the ages of time. For others who want a little more adventure, boat trips are available on the river itself, floating you through the canyon's 280 miles of majestic scenery. The first man to accomplish this feat was the well-known scientist and surveyor, Major John Wesley Powell. In 1869, he and a party of 5 men successfully navigated their small boats down the Colorado River for over 1,000 miles, including the adventuresome journey through the Grand Canyon itself. Today, you can do the same thing, even in similar boats, reliving Powell's historic journey with his words as a reminder of what he saw and recorded long ago.
Each wall of the canyon seems to be made up of many walls, each blending with the others in color and texture. The many gorges are a world of beauty in themselves, yet they all unite to form one Grand Canyon, perhaps the most majestic spectacle on earth. Today we passed a stream on the right which leaps into the Colorado River by a fall of more than 100 feet, forming a beautiful cascade. Around on the rocks is a variety of vegetation, delicate flowers and greenery that sets this canyon landscape apart from any other. From time to time, the canyon narrows, and the water becomes swifter. Again, we are in rapids. At times, we can barely maintain control of the boat, so powerful and uninterrupted is the turbulent sweep of the river. At one place, we are being hurled along at a tremendous speed into the boiling turmoil, expecting to feel a crash and to have our boat crumble beneath us. Fortunately, the rocks are deeper than they appear. Our luck seems to be holding.
The words of John Wesley Powell are as meaningful today as they were over 100 years ago. He journeyed through the western canyon country not once but twice, mapping and recording a great amount of scientific data. In fact, his explorations and later government work drew a good deal of attention to what is called the Colorado Plateau region, considered then the last unexplored part of our country.
And there were parts of it unexplored. One place in particular was here in the southwest part of Colorado. This area had never been seen by a white man until the year 1888. In December of that year, two cowboys, Don Wetherill and Charles Mason, while trying to find some of their stray cattle, suddenly came upon a sight that they could hardly believe.
There below the great tableland called Mesa Verde were some of the most spectacular cliff dwellings ever found. Here were the remains of an Indian civilization which had been undisturbed for hundreds of years. Wetherill and Mason were breathless with excitement as they started through the deserted ruins.
We spent several hours going from room to room, prying into every corner, appraising the strange things we saw. Many of the rooms were small, with high doorways and few windows. Here and there among the houses were mysterious circular pits, the only way into them downward by ladder. At the north end, the terrace structure rose to touch the roof of the cave. It was here we found corn cobs, tassels, and clay pots. We knew then these people had been farmers.
Wetherill and Mason had guessed correctly. These ancient dwellings had been part of a farming community, raising crops like corn, beans, squash up on top of the mesa, while living here under the mesa, secure and well protected from possible enemies.
And these circular pits, well, we know now that they were once ceremonial rooms called kivas, an important religious part of the Pueblo Indian culture that still exists today.
Never before had such remarkable evidence been preserved like this, enabling men and women to study these ancient Indian people that we now call the Anasazi.
Why did the Indians leave here?
Well, we're not really sure why the Anasazi left here. We do know there was a long drought towards the end of the 1200s, which probably brought on starvation here and maybe forced the people out, and they probably moved further south into areas that were more productive.
Scientists, geologists, historians have all been trying to piece together the story of what happened here at Mesa Verde ever since its discovery long ago. Thanks to men like Theodore Roosevelt and others, this site became a national park in 1906.
Will these ruins be preserved for future study and our continual amazement? Well, that may depend upon you and your generation to help make sure that our national parks remain as they were intended, as places of natural beauty and historic significance for the enjoyment and benefit of all of us.